Welcome to Fully Bright in 10. Here we get it right, get bright, and stay bright. In this video, we will solve quadratic equations using factorization. So, let's get bright. Here we have an example of a quadratic equation. X squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. Your goal is to rewrite the left-hand side of the equation into 4 parts. Currently, it has 3. But you really want to focus on replacing the middle term with 2 terms. In order to get this done, write down the coefficient on the first term. What is that? It's 1. Now write down the last term. What is that? Minus 2. Now multiply 1 and minus 2. We get minus 2. Now ask yourself this question. What two numbers can I multiply to get minus 2 and at the same time add those two numbers to get the coefficient on x? And the coefficient on x is 1. So think about it. What are those two numbers? You should come up with 1 and minus 2. Why? Because when you multiply 1 and minus 2, you get minus 2. But if you add minus 1 and 2, you get 1, which is the coefficient on x in our equation. So two numbers, minus 1 and 2, we're going to use these two numbers to rewrite the left-hand side of that equation. So using those two numbers, we have x squared minus x plus 2x minus 2 equals 0. So notice we're replacing that x in the first equation with the two terms, as you can see in the second equation. The minus 1 on the x comes from the minus 1 that we came up with, and that 2 on the second x term is the 2 that we came up with. Now, let's try to factor out some common terms out of x squared minus x and the common term from 2x minus 2. Doing so, we end up with x, open brackets, x minus 1, plus 2, open brackets, x minus 1, right? So again, we're factoring out the common term. Now, if you look at this again, we just need to pull out that x minus 1 and that x plus 2, and we end up with x minus 1 times x plus 2 equals to 0. Because x minus 1 is common to that equation, right? So you factor that out, you end up with x minus 1 times x plus 2 equals to 0. Now, if you were to multiply x minus 1 times x plus 2, you would end up with our original equation, which is x squared plus x minus 2. So let's solve this equation for x. We end up with x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals to 0. So therefore, x is equal to 1 and x is equal to minus 2. Let's do another example. X squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Again, we can repeat the same steps as we did before. The coefficient on the first term is 1, and the last term, which is our constant, is minus 4. You multiply these two numbers, you get minus 4. Then you ask yourself, what two numbers can I multiply to get minus 4, and at the same time add to get the coefficient on x, which is 3? You should come up with minus 1 and 4. Why? Because minus 1 times 4 gives you minus 4. And minus 1 plus 4 gives you 3. So now we can use those two numbers to rewrite the left-hand side of the equation as we did before. So we have x squared minus x, which is the minus 1 that we came up with, plus 4x, and this 4 is the 4 that we just came up with, minus 4 equal to 0. So again, we want to factor out the common term from x squared minus x and the common term from 4x minus 4. So from the first one, the common term is x, and from the second, the common term is 4. So we can factor those out, and we end up with this new equation. So the common term between these two terms is actually x minus 1. So we factor that out, and we end up with x minus 1 times x plus 4 equals 0. Again, if we were to clear the brackets here, we would end up with our original equation. So solving this equation for x, we end up with x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. That gives us x equals 1 and x also being equal to minus 4. I know you got this because you are right. Can you solve a quadratic equation using factorization? I bet you can. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Fully Bright in 10, where we get it right, get bright, and stay bright.